The fantasy baseball season is just around the corner, and I know a lot of drafts will be happening this weekend, and you want to go into your draft knowing the best value selection you can make in each round for the 2026 fantasy baseball season. These will be my favorite selections based on value for each round heading into the year. So good luck to everyone with your drafts coming up this week. Hopefully you stick around during the season. I'll be doing weekly waiver wire videos. Hopefully I'll throw in the odd buy low or sell high video as well. Thanks for 2K subs. I appreciate you guys. You are the best. I never expected that I would get to 2K in the first year of essentially doing this hobby. I'm just some random ex-athlete Canadian dad who's addicted to fantasy sports. So appreciate you guys sticking around. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris, and welcome to Number 2 Sports. Okay, a little housekeeping before we get into this though. This isn't specifically for any league or any league type. This isn't specifically for points league, category leagues, or a roto league. This is just what I think the best players are in each round value wise. And obviously this doesn't take into account where you select in the draft and what players are or aren't available depending how your draft goes. So those are just a couple things to keep in mind as we go throughout this video. Okay, so for the first round, it doesn't really count as a little different because really all these guys are of value. You can't really go wrong with any of the top 12. And obviously if you have like a top 3 pick, you're just going to smash one of Judge, Ohtani, or Bobby Witt Jr. This is going to be more if you have a pick in the middle to end or the end of round 1, just because that's a little bit harder. You have more choices to go from, and maybe just not a clear choice one way or the other. So if you're in the middle to end or end of the first round, I really view this as you have 2 choices here. First choice, you can take one of the stud 3 pitchers, whoever one you prefer, Skubal, Skeens, or Crochet, if that's the route you want to go. Personally, I don't like taking a starting pitcher in the first round. I always go hitter, but I know some people just like to have potentially one of the best pitchers in the game, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine, just not what I do. Or option number 2, you go get yourself Ronald Acuna Jr. with an ADP at 10 right now. So Acuna Jr. is just 2 seasons removed from swiping 73 bags. And I know the injuries are scary. I know the injuries are terrifying, but he was just healthy for the World Baseball Classic, which is a huge sign that his team let him go out and play there. Because if there was any injury concerns whatsoever, he would have not participated. There was just no other player at the end of round 1 who has legitimate number 1 player upside that you could select. Nobody can predict injuries. Go big or go home. Okay, and we'll give you a little honorable mention here if the Acuna scares you off a little bit. If you think he's not going to run as much because of his injuries, I don't think that's going to be happening, but that's going to be Kyle Tucker of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, he's going to be sandwiched between 3 future Hall of Famers in that lineup, so I think that's probably a pretty good thing. He gets a slight upgrade at his home ballpark, moving to Los Angeles. The past injuries have seen a little random, so nothing to predict going forward here. That lineup is just going to be so filthy good, and Tucker's still in his prime. I think the sky's the limit for him. Okay, let's move on to round 2, and with an ADP of 17 or 18 right now, we're going to go Vladimir Guerrero Jr. off the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, he did last year have a down year by his standards with only 23 home runs and 84 RBI, and some batted ball metrics did decrease, but I'm just not concerned whatsoever. We all saw how he carried and willed that Blue Jays team throughout the postseason and came this close to a World Series title. I am totally in on a bounce back for his counting stats, and getting him in the second half of the second round at an ADP of 17 or 18, where he could just easily finish as a first round player by season's end and nobody would be surprised whatsoever. Just seems like great value of me heading into 2026. We'll throw in another honorable mention here with Corbin Carroll with an ADP of 18 right now. So if he keeps dropping or stays put due to the Haymate surgery, but there is some data to show that it can zap your power that first year back right from it, but nothing again is an exact science, so we don't know how exactly it's going to play out. I would smash draft Corbin Carroll at the 18 spot in the second round of drafts. And he's just another guy who could easily finish in the first round by season's end, and nobody would bat an eye. Okay, for round 3, we're going to go Christopher Sanchez. Now, if you went hitter like I tend to do, getting Sanchez in the 3rd round as your ace to build your starting rotation around just feels like highway robbery to me. Now, he is going usually right at the beginning of round 3, so it might not work out for everyone depending on what pick you get in the draft. Sanchez is durable. He has high strikeouts. He gets wins. He gets quality starts. His ratios are superb. He's everything you want in an ace for fantasy, and he just would have won the Cy Young last year if it wasn't for some random guy over in Pittsburgh. And another honorable mention here, if you're still looking for your first pitcher by round 3, is going to be Brian Wu from the Seattle Marooners. Now, if you missed out on Sanchez, Wu is an unbelievable consolation prize at the end of round 3, and I sometimes see him even falling to the 4th round, which is just even crazier and even better. Batters just can't touch his fastball. Pitches in the great, if not the greatest home park for pitchers in Seattle up there. He has exceptional control. As long as he stays healthy, I see zero reason why he won't finish as a top 10 starting pitcher in fantasy, with potentially top 5 upside by season's end. Maybe I'm a little biased on Mr. Wu. What do you guys think about Wu heading into 2026? Okay, we'll keep going with round 4. We're going to go with Rafael Devers off the San Francisco Giants. Now, he might strike out a little bit more, but he's still on a 37 home run pace at Oracle. It was a weird year last year in Boston. He went through one of those most disgusting streaks in a long time there. People were thinking he was going to get sent down to AAA and yada yada. There was a lot of chatter. It was probably affecting his game. But I'm buying back into the top 30 player we saw the 2 years prior. I think a full offseason in San Francisco will do him wonders, help him get back to that elite status that we'd seen in years past, and be one of the better corner infield options for the 2026 fantasy baseball season. Okay, we're going to do a little honorable mention here for round 4, and that's going to be Roman Anthony, the outfielder off the Boston Red Sox. Now, Roman had an unbelievable rookie year. He inked a $130 million deal. The kid has every tool imaginable that you could want for fantasy and really in real life too as well. In the 71 regular season games that he played between his June call-up and then season-ending oblique injury in September, Anthony was second among qualified hitters in hard hit rate at 60.3% and 12th in chase rate at 20%. At just 21 years old. I get it, the sophomore slump can be scary, but I think Roman Anthony is just too talented. He's too good to have any real slump, and I think the sky is the limit for this kid heading into year 2. Okay, on to round 5 for the best value pick in that round. I think is going to be Bryce Turang off the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, he couldn't end up just legit challenging for the number 1 overall spot at the second base position this year if his late power surge from 2025 carries over to 2026, and you just don't have to use a second round pick to get him. The underlying metrics backed his power surge with a 4-mile-per-hour increase in his bat speed. And even if that does come at the cost of more strikeouts because of the change, the rest of his game is just so fantasy friendly, it won't matter with that blend of power and speed that's so often sought out in the fantasy landscape. Okay, and we'll just do a little honorable mention here. I'm trying to keep it balanced between pitcher and hitter again because I don't know what the Pacific team build would look like, but that's going to be Cole Ragans off the Kansas City Royals. Ragans did miss 3 months in 2025 due to a rotator cuff strain, and usually that's a big no-no. I tend to stay away from that pitcher the following year just because I can feel like they can have lingering effects or some issues, but he actually returned at the end of 2025 and fanned 18 out of the 35 batters he faced over his 2 final regular season starts. Reagan's 11-mile-per-hour contrast between his fastball and changeup is exceptional. He has a plus 40% whiff rate on his slider, and he just owns one of the game's deepest arsenals. Now, if he's healthy and he puts together a complete season, he is top 5-ish starting pitcher upside. I don't really think anyone's going to beef with that. But will he pitch enough innings to even get close to that? Nobody knows. I have no idea. I just know I love chasing upside, and Ragans is just oozing with it. There is legitimate, real risk here with insane upside. Okay, and into round 6 is one of my favorite picks that you can get out of the entire draft right now, and that's going to be the third baseman, Austin Riley off the Atlanta Braves. Now, at 28 years old, Riley still is in the middle of his prime. He was elite from 2021 to 2023 before some injuries derailed the tail end of those seasons and kind of cucked over his season-ending lines. He averaged 36 home runs, 99 RBI, and 99 runs in those years, providing the baseline of what he could just potentially be heading into 2026. Riley does have the upside to finish as a top 3 third baseman that you can get in the 6th round. I think a full healthy season of Acuna Jr. will help Riley's counting stats by the end of the year. And if Riley starts to run, I know there's been a ton of chatter with the new manager about them wanting to run more. And I know in spring training that can just be them blowing a lot of smoke up your ass. But if he can get to double-digit steals, that'll just do wonders for his already solid fantasy line at the end of 2026. Okay, we'll move on to round 7 here with Vinny Pasquantino, the first baseman from the Kansas City Royals. Now, Vinny was an RBA machine last year, driving in 113 runs, mashing 32 homers with a 798 OPS. He set up perfectly behind Bobby Witt Jr. in that lineup to utilize his speed and his base stealing ability to get a bunch of cheap RBIs. His underlying metrics are great. He has raw power. He pulls the ball in the air a lot. His exit velocity is up. Vinny P is just in the prime of his career. And the Royals also moved in their fences 10 feet, just giving them a little extra bump on some of those fly balls that's going to hit out to the outfield. Now, he's truly a points league monster, but every arrow is pointing up with him in my mind. Another 30 plus home runs and 100 plus RBIs seems very likely for Vinny P heading into 2026. And a little honorable mention for a pitcher here is going to be Kyle Bradish off the Baltimore Orioles. Now, if you're a type of the guy who likes to wait on their starting pitcher, to wait to get their ace and fill out their staff later in the draft, I think Bradish is almost like a must draft type of guy for that type of build. He has immense starting one pitcher potential. He may not get there in the innings perspective. That could be the one knock on him, but the upside he's flashed since returning from Tommy John surgery is just sensational. He had a 37.3 K rate last year with a 34.8% whiff rate and a 2.53 ERA in 32 innings. Bradish was a Cy Young candidate, don't forget, way back in 2023. He has all the pieces to put it together from a fantasy standpoint, from a real life perspective. I think he easily has top 15 starting pitcher potential and is being drafted outside the top 20 right now. I think this is a great draft day value, nabbing Kyle Bradish in the 7th round. Now, round 8 kind of looks a little gross from a hitter's perspective, but you know what? I still have faith in my boy, and that's going to be CJ Abrams from the Washington Nationals. So yes, I know it's a little gross, and honestly, I did like it better when you could get Bichette in the 8th round. I think that's great value. If he's there, you auto bang Bichette, but if you have no choice here, you need a hitter, I'm going to go with my boy CJ. Now, he is a solid shortstop. He'll most likely finish the year close to 20 home runs and plus 30 steals, which is just great for roto and category leagues. In points leagues, he'll definitely be a bit lower. He's still only 25-year-old, so improvement definitely isn't out of the cards, even though he's kind of stalled, it seems like, in the last couple years. The power-speed combo is elite. It's there. The potential is there. I like the upside, and I'm always going to chase it. Things fall right for CJ if we see him improve on his plate discipline, a little bit of his chase percentages, whiff percentages, stuff like that. I definitely can see him finishing a couple rounds above his ADP by season's end. Now, honestly, my preferred choice, if you need a pitcher in this round, is going to be Nolan McLean from the New York Mets. Now, he's practically a wiffle ball pitcher with the amount of movements he gets on his pitches. Just check some of these out. It's absolutely disgusting. He has a deep arsenal that he can attack both sides of the plate with. Good velocity, elite K offerings, and barring good health, he should exceed over 180 innings and return insane value for an 8th round pick. I would be hard pressed not to draft Nolan McLean at this point in your draft, regardless of the team build. Okay, moving on to round 9 though, even though technically his ADP does say he goes in the 10th, and I do see him go in the 10th a lot, but I just want to get my boy, and that's going to be Luke Keeschall off the Minnesota Twinnies. So yes, his ADP really is the 10th round, but again, I don't like losing him, so I'll just grab him in the 9th instead of waiting to the 10th and potentially losing him depending where I pick. Now, I probably am just over bullish on his outlook heading into 2026. So Luke Keeschall took the league by storm upon his arrival in the majors last year until a broken forearm really derailed him for 3 months. He still finished the season though with a 302 average, 4 home runs, 14 swipes, and an 827 OPS and 207 plate appearances. Keeschall really just is the ultimate ceiling play, which I love. I could totally see him hitting 15 plus homers, like a 270-ish batting average, and 40 swipes from the leadoff spot this year. He had power in the minors. If he can start pulling the ball more in the air more often like he did in the minors in the majors, and just bring up his raw power metrics just to league average, not anything crazy, just to league average, I can totally see him taking a major leap forward in his 2nd season and at least being in the discussion as one of the best fantasy second basemen by season's end. What do you guys think about Luke Keeschall heading into the 2026 fantasy baseball season? Am I just a little too horny for him? Are you buying into the breakout as well? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, on to round 10. We're getting to double digits here, like my double Ds. It's going to be Yori Perez off the Miami Marlins. Now, there is data that shows that a pitcher does make real improvements and starts to get their control back 2 years removed from Tommy John surgery, and that's what Perez is entering into that time frame for 2026. He did struggle a little bit in his return in 2025, but that can be expected, especially for a young pitcher returning from a major surgery. His fastball averages 97.7 miles per hour, and he has 3 secondary pitches, slider, curveball, and changeup, that generate 40% plus whiff rates, which is just exceptional. He can attack you in so many different ways on the mound there. The four-seamer is truly elite, though. I expect him to make improvements with a full, healthy offseason, not one where he's just trying to rehab and get healthy again. He has a full season to get training, to get working on any mechanics. At 6'8", and 22 years old, he has all the tools to be a fantasy ace. Perez can just pile up the strikeouts, and I expect to see the pitcher closer to that 2023 version, who looked like he was on the short path to becoming just one of the better pitchers in all of baseball, than the version that we saw last year in 2025. The upside is sky high. The talent is just undeniable. He's being drafted outside the top 30 right now, which just feels downright criminal. I think he could end up being one of the better draft day steals, getting him in round 10 or higher. If you see me passing on Eori Perez in the 10th round, just take me out back, man. Put me out of my misery. Okay, so for round 11 here with an ADP of around 135, we're going to go with Jakob Marcy off the Miami Marlins. So along with Kyle Stowers last season, Marcy was a bright spot for an underwhelming Marlins squad yet again. He finished 2025 with a 292 average, a 478 slugging percentage, and 841 OPS, and 209 at-bats. He plated 5 home runs and swiped 14 bags as well. He has great plate discipline. He really does control the zone. You can see it each and every at-bat. He did it in the minor leagues, and he's doing it in the majors and will continue to do that. He has great defense, so they're always going to get that bat in the lineup. He's just a pure athlete through and through. He's really exciting to watch. I like watching him. I'd prefer to have him as like my third outfielder, but his price is continually getting driven up to potentially be your second outfielder, and that's okay. I'm willing to bet on him to continue making improvements heading into 2026. Even though it does come with a little risk here. Okay, round 12, we're getting a 3-for-1 Chris's special. Not 2-for-1, 3-for-1, baby. 3 is better than 2, I think. I don't know, my toddler says it is. But anyways, we're going to get Bubba Chandler, Emmett Sheehan, and Ryan Pepio. Now, I know this is cheating, so frickin' sue me, man. But I feel like everything after round 12 is just individual preferred sleeper picks anyways. So that's why I'm lumping 3 in here. So I have talked about a couple of these guys on my sleeper video, but Bubba Chandler is maybe the riskiest since he is still showing some control issues, but his upside is probably the biggest, the highest. His four-seamer is 98 miles per hour with elite vertical break and command, one of the best in the game. I'm willing to bet on him figuring out the rest of his issues, the rest of his control stuff and arsenal, because the baseline talent is just through the roof. Good elite pitchers just figure out a way to get it done. And I think Bubba Chandler has a great chance of doing that in 2026. And then the next one, Emmett Sheehan, I feel like we just have a breakout hiding in plain sight here, except for the fact that he's probably going to be in a 6-man rotation. So that could really hurt his value in weekly lock head-to-head leagues. You're never going to get a 2-start week, which does suck. So just double check your league settings or what format you're in, see if that's going to be a big issue for you though. But his four-seamer is just next level. It's awesome. He always keeps it upstairs. He has a nice arsenal too. He knows how to attack lefties and righties, a solid slider, and a decent changeup. I think the Dodgers are ready to unleash him after babying him a little bit last year. The only negative is that he might be in a 6-man rotation. I think Sheehan could absolutely obliterate this ADP in 2026. And then the next one, Ryan Pepio, I talked about him a ton in my sleeper video. It's going to be on one of these screens. Make sure you check that out for a more in-depth analysis. One of the main reasons I like to wait on pitcher, just feels like you can fill out your rotation with so many upside arms later in the draft after you focused on getting your stud hitters early on. Just me personally, no way is right or wrong. Okay, on to round 13, lucky 13, we're going with Noelvi Marte off the Cincinnati Reds. Now, he has third base and outfield eligibility heading into 26. I got to keep reminding myself to say the positions. I know I did just a downright awful job in my last sleeper video doing that. I know a couple of you guys commented on that, so that's my bad, but I'll fix it going forward. But back to Marte. Where to honestly just start with him. Way back when he was 17, he was the top prospect in the Mariners farm system, and then he was traded in the Luis Castillo deal a couple years later, then had an insane debut where I was kicking the Mariners forever, trading him, followed by a PED suspension where I applauded the Mariners for trading him. The guy was just juicing. And then in 2025, there's a point where he's hitting over 300 with an OPS over 850, where I was sad again the Mariners let him go until he went full ice mode into the shitter the rest of the season to hit below below 200 over his last 29 games, striking out almost 33% of the time. Not good. I've always liked Marte. Maybe I'm blinded by the small bursts of pure dominance he gives us each year, just teasing that raw power and speed combo, waiting to take us into the moon. But heading into 2026, it looks like he's locked down a spot in the outfield because his defense is lagging. He still, again, has third base eligibility in Yahoo for one more year, so that is a bonus at dual position eligibility. Marte has the power, even without the juice. He hit a ball over 116 miles per hour last season. I think only 10 or so hitters did that feat last year, so it wasn't just the Roys in 2023. And if it wasn't for that putrid finish to the season in 2025, you would have had a strikeout rate well below 20%, which is awesome and what you want to see for a player like Marte to have success going forward. I think Marte could legit be a 5-category contributor if his strikeout rate stays manageable. I like Marte. I like the upside. I always bet on the upside. I wouldn't put it past him to see him finish the season as a 2020 guy in 2026. Okay, and for an honorable mention in round 13 of pitching selection, we're going to go with Grunty McGrunts, Mr. Robbie Ray. Now, he's probably one of my favorite selections this slate just for a couple reasons. Now, why is everyone hating on him? Why is his ADP so suppressed? Is it just because he wears and finds the tightest pants possible? Like, I think that's a plus. Let the man show off his bulge, okay? But back to the pitching aspect, though, Ray has been fairly consistent year to year, even though he does get pegged as being super inconsistent, lots of variances over his career. Last year in 2025, he pitched 182.1 innings with a 3.65 ERA, a 1.12 whip, and 186 Ks. I understand the control issues, but I think he's just a strikeout king through and through, and you should get quality volume out of him. He's not the flashiest pick in the world. He's not going to be your starting pitcher one, but he's a great middle of the rotation, end of the rotation guy that you can get this late. And that's solid for fantasy purposes. It's a nice way to fill out the back end of your rotation if your other spots are already filled. I'm taking the best grunter in the game all day in round 13 on draft day. Okay, we'll keep moving on to round 14. Another guy that I talked about in my sleeper video, so I went in more in depth in that video if you care to check it out for me, baby. And that's going to be Kazuma Okamoto off the Toronto Blue Jays. Now he was a consistent 30-plus home run guy in the Japan dead ball area, which I think a lot of people are actually underestimating. He excelled in the World Baseball Classic in 2023, struggled a little bit more this year in 2026, albeit a small sample size. He pulls the ball in the air a lot, which I love. And you know good things tend to happen when hitters can continually do that. Feels like a safe bet and a good fit at third base for Toronto, and I'm excited for him. I think he could really exceed this ADP if he has a smooth transition over to the major leagues. Okay, we'll keep going to round 15 with Alec Burleson, who has first base and outfield eligibility for the 2026 fantasy baseball season on Yahoo. I'm not sure what it is on other platforms at this moment, but again, I'm sounding like a broken record here for people that have watched my sleeper videos. I'm super hype on Burleson. I'll link it at the end of this video if you want a more in-depth description. Again, the sparse notes though, for people who haven't seen it, he's no longer in a platoon figuring out how to hit lefties or at least hit them better in 2025. He'll probably be in the 3-hole all year long, and his contact skills are excellent with above average power. Burleson is someone who just continues to improve year over year, which I love, and I expect more of the same in 2026. He's one of my favorite sleeper picks. For just that nice baseline value, you know exactly what you're going to get, with probably a little extra too, especially at this ADP. All right, boys, we're getting deep here. I like it. So for round 16, I'm kind of in on Dylan Cruz this year. He was once one of baseball's best prospects, but has stuttered in the majors so far. Cruz has had such a bad BABIP at 248, really 60 points below league average. He has such an incredible fantasy-friendly skill set that even with a little improvement at the plate and some positive regression, he could wind up with 20-plus home runs and 30-plus steals by season's end. Not bad for a guy with an ADP over 200. Okay, so now I won't really go round by round to close out the draft. At this point, people are just grabbing their favorite sleeper picks anyways, really disregarding ADP and just going to get their lottery ticket guys, the guys that they really like and that they want on their squad. I'm going to put the names up here for the guys that I've drafted the most, that I like the most for both hitters and pitchers. And remember, check out both those sleeper videos if you want more selections and more in-depth analysis. I appreciate you, boys. One guy that I just seem to be leaving every single draft with, I can't stop drafting him, is going to be Jack Caglione off the Kansas City Royals. playoffs, I feel like he's a must. That raw power, everything. I think he could have an outstanding year. And another Royal, Carter Jensen. So he is a must type guy if you're the person who waits on drafting a catcher. So if you don't get one of those early guys, definitely wait till the end to grab a catcher if you miss out on the top few. And I think Carter Jensen just has that upside where he could play up into that second or maybe first tier of catchers that you can just get at the end of your draft. I like everything that he's doing. I like his skill set. He's another guy that I just can't seem to stop drafting. And then JJ Weatherholt, Addison Barger, Connor Griffin as a stash candidate, and then pitchers Cade Horton, Chris Bubich, Edward Cabrera. I'm super high again on Edward Cabrera. As you guys know, I love that guy. I like the situation in Chicago. I think he could be set up for a great year. I think this could be the year that he puts it all together. Fingers crossed. Tatsuya Imai, probably butchered that pronunciation again. I think that's all right though. And then, I seem to just always be drafting this guy. I'm a homer. Blame me, sue me, do whatever. Bryce Miller. But all right, boys, I think that's it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching and supporting the channel. Thanks for watching these videos. Let me know if there's any other pre-draft video you want to see before the season starts next week. Maybe I'll try and bang it out over the weekend. As always, have a good rest of your day, night, week, weekend, wherever you are. And I'll see you guys real soon.